This is A Line Around Your Thoughts, a podcast that centers on conversations with artists, writers, musicians, and creatives from around the Inland Northwest. I'm your host, EJ Ionelli. Joining me today in the Rogue Heart Media studio are Sienna and Joe Henson, co-founders of Hitchhikers Theater. So welcome, Sienna, and welcome, Joe.
Thanks, EJ. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here. And you had said that this was one of the initial gigs that you had done in terms of publicity. So, you know, you're coming out and talking about Hitchhikers Theater and then the plays that are coming up. And have you had much exposure yet?
No, this is the first one. This is our debut.
Oh, I'm honored that that this marks your debut. I'll try to make it as pleasant as possible. And so this Hitchhikers Theater got its start in 2024. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You're thinking back. The pandemic made everybody's memories fuzzy, and so it's like, did it happen pre-pandemic or post-pandemic? So what was the impetus for starting it?
To be completely honest, we got a really good tax return that year. We both studied at Whitworth. I studied theater at Whitworth. And after about a year after I had graduated, I was just sort of antsy and wanted to do a show and sort of get something out of my system. And Sienna encouraged, well, just do one then. If there's a show that you want to do, make it cheap, but let's just put on a show. And it was just planned as a one-time thing. I've always really liked the play Waiting for Godot, which is also a perfect play to do on a budget because it's 4 actors. It takes place nowhere. And
it's a pretty static set. Yeah,
it is. And so that was just sort of a one-off thing to, I guess, scratch an itch and put on something fun with friends. And then we thought, well, we can actually do something really special here. So,
well, even though Waiting for Godot is fairly established, it is still a little experimental. And so to make that one of your first production, it might strike some as a bit daunting because it is one of the more existential plays, certainly. So
it's a real love it or you hate it kind of.
It is, but it's not an easy one to stage, and it's also been done exceptionally well in the past too. So there's always that pressure. You're going up against that palimpsest of all the previous productions as well. Had you done a production of Waiting for Godot prior to that, or was it something that you hadn't done and you thought, I really want to bring this to the stage, so to speak?
That was it. Yeah, I hadn't done a production. I'd read it before, and sometimes you do a show because it's a cool title or because you're asked to. This was a show where the first time I read it, I felt like I just sort of had a really clear, okay, this is exactly how I want to stage it. This is why it's important right now. And it helped that it was pretty feasible for us to put on too. But yeah, thankfully it felt like I had a pretty clear reason to put it on that wasn't just, it's cheap.
And did you say you were involved in Whitworth drama? Were you a drama major there?
Okay. Yeah, I majored in theater, and mostly it was performance. And then I took a directing class my sophomore year and really sort of leaned on that as something I preferred even more. So, yeah.
Cool. And Sienna, what was your background?
I have no theater background. I am just here and along for the ride. So actually, I'd never done any sort of drama before. I think I sang in the shower in the car, and that was about it. And so I do more of the operations side, and then as well some intimacy directing. So my day-to-day job is actually as a marriage and family therapist. And so I spend all day discussing boundaries, and I run my own business. And so it lended itself pretty naturally to fall into the operation side of it and kind of the organization and the management. So Joe's definitely the dreamer, and I have a tendency to be the navigator behind that.
Well, yeah, it's the two halves of a whole, isn't it? The yin and the yang that's necessary for any operation to run. Because the dreamers are great, but when it comes to paying the bills, the dreamers ain't always the ones to do it.
That's right.
I manage the budget and the spreadsheets, and he teaches me all the theater terms that I would never know.
And I think the natural question that arises is why go it alone? Especially if you're just coming out of school, why wouldn't you take this play to a place like the Civic and say, hey, do you want to do this in your studio theater or stage left or something like that? Why was your first inclination, or maybe it wasn't, to do it on your own?
Sure. Mostly, I think I wanted the exercise of directing because at Whitworth I had directed, I think, one show, but it was like a student-led program. It wasn't one of the Whitworth shows, and it's a big risk for a theater to give one of their shows to someone with one credit to their name. And so mostly I thought, well, I just want to get more experience. I want to get more credits. I want to get good at this. And I have plenty of dream shows that I want to put on. So yeah,
and
we
that
had the means
being
to
said,
do it.
we did work with Blue Door. We hosted with Blue Door, and so they were so generous to help us out with our first show, and kind of help us learn the ropes. And so they taught us their ticket system, and they let us use their space for rehearsals and for the production.
We have gotten a lot of support from other theaters too.
Yeah.
My senior year, I interned with Stage Left, and that was when Jeremy Whittington was the artistic and managing director there. And so he's been a really helpful resource to get advice from, and he's very supportive of us. And David Bullis is also, works with everybody, and everybody knows he's a great contact too. So we have had lots of support.
Yeah, and that kind of establishes continuity because now David has moved into Jeremy's position at Stage Left. So yeah, you've got that support continuity there, which is nice.
Absolutely.
And so with the initial round of productions that you wanted to stage, so you got Waiting for Godot done, and was it then, okay, let's plan for another 3 or 4, or did you take each production as they came? Because you just pretty much got done with your first official season, correct?
Yeah. We maybe just as a safety net, we thought, well, maybe it'd be a good idea, instead of saying, I'm Joe, come watch my show, maybe we should come up with a title for our group if it turns into something. And so we came up with Hitchhiker's Theater, because we thought, well, if we're going to do this for a long time, it'll be an even longer time before we have our own building. So we go around town and hitchhike and find cool venues. But after that first show happened, everybody on the crew and many of the performers said, well, what's the next, what's the next one? And thankfully we had a really big team that all wanted to keep going. And so we all met. I told everyone, okay, spend the next 2 weeks, read as many plays as you can. We're all going to lock ourselves in a room for a full day and come out with the next year of shows. And I think we planned our first year to do 6 shows, which was irresponsible. We did 4, which was still maybe too many, but it was all sort of planned in one day.
Oh, really? And you raise an interesting point, and probably a question that I should have asked at the outset was the name conceived before the inaugural show, or did the name ensue? And it sounds like the name Hitchhiker's Theater was engendered after that first show. Sort of
during the process of it, we thought, well, people are going to take that. Well, and I was also...
we need to name ourselves. Right. What are people going to call us?
I was also telling the actors, because for that show, we didn't hold auditions, because who are we? And we didn't have an Instagram page. And so I messaged some friends, and I told them, look, if you do this show, it's not because you're going to get paid a lot. We'll give you little stipends. And it's not because for the fame, because probably no one's going to watch this. You're doing this maybe to get credits on your resume and to get good experience, and because you enjoy doing it. So I figured, well, if someone I was Pazzo and Waiting for Godot by Hitchhiker's Theater, I'll think, well, that seems sort of legit.
Well, that kind of speaks to your MO, because in your mission statement, you lay out that you're there to kind of help people build their artistic and their theatrical chops. And this is kind of a proving ground to some extent for folks who want to do more theater but don't necessarily have that entry point. They say, you know what, I only sing in the car, I only sing in the shower, but man, I would like to get involved. Yeah. And it seems like you're kind of creating that space for them to kind of get that initial experience.
Yeah, and especially moving people into new positions they haven't tried. So, for example, our current show that we're working on is 5 Lesbians Eating a Quiche. And Sydney Anderson is directing this, who's a good friend of ours, who's been acting with us and alongside us for years now, since college with Joe. And we reached out to her to offer her a directing position, which she hasn't really had the opportunity to do so far. But Joe is very gifted in directing and loves it so much and loves teaching people that instead she's kind of come alongside and now has this credit for directing. And so we have so many different people on our team with different specialties that allows people to expand into different areas of the arts that maybe they wouldn't otherwise get the chance to.
Yeah. Yeah, and after each show, we send out a feedback form to the cast and crew, and one of the questions we ask all of them is like, is there a new hat you want to try on? Like, do you want to work with us in the future? And also, like, in what capacity? You know, it doesn't matter if you don't have any experience. And that was a situation where Sydney said, I don't have much or any experience in directing, but I'd love to take a crack at it. And so we wanted to do that.
But this still does seem to be, at the moment, a fairly small circle, because you two share a surname, and then other folks who are involved with the theater, Dolan Dirks is a common surname, and then you've also got Aaron Bratt, who's your music director. So I'm assuming right now it's a fairly close-knit group of folks that you already had relationships with, and you're kind of building that friend circle.
Yeah, building it, I think, to not be just a friend circle moving forward. But yeah, each show, I mean, one of our goals for season 2 specifically is for every director, we're going to have an assistant director. And for every stage manager, we're going to have an assistant stage manager, so that we can be building up those skills, because I enjoy directing. I don't want to direct 4 shows a year and run this thing. And we have a good... Daniel Dolan Dirks is a good stage manager. He's the best I've ever. I mean, he's just incredible. But he doesn't want to do every single show, and maybe he wants to act or direct or something. And so, yeah, we're trying to build out that team.
Yeah.
And your second production. So after you got done with Waiting for Godot, you went almost completely in the other direction. You went with The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a very traditional Oscar Wilde play, with one of the most versatile, something that was billed as one of the most versatile lines in all of theater, which is Lady Bracknell's "a handbag," which you can render, about 60,000 different ways. Yeah. So what made you go from Waiting for Godot to almost the other end of the spectrum with an Oscar Wilde play?
I think Joe just has like this running list of shows and inspirations and sort of images and just like almost a collage board for probably 100 different shows at a time. And so he could probably plan out the next 10 years of Hitchhikers with different inspirations he had. And so I know I'll let you talk more about it, but I'll just say that Joe came into this saying, I really want the next show to be Earnest. So he knew immediately as soon as we started Hitchhikers that was going to be the next show.
Yeah, like I said, we sort of locked ourselves in a room after 2 weeks of bring pitches, bring complete pitches. And that came from everybody, from our tech director to our composer and Sienna, right, who you probably read your first play in those 2 weeks. And everybody gave their pitches, and our shows ended up coming from a large variety of people. That show in particular, I was staged to be Jack in a production of The Importance of Being Earnest that was set to premiere in late March of 2020. And of course that didn't happen. And that was always like if I ever get the chance, I'm gonna do this. And so and I had like obviously someone else was directing that one, and I thought, okay, if I get to do this, like, I have such a clear, again, like a vision for how we can do this that lives into one of our other big values, which is picking a show at the same time as picking the venue for it, so that all of our shows really are immersive. The Importance of Being Earnest, the way we did it, no amount of money could build a set for a garden that like smelled and looked and felt the way that the garden that we performed in was.
And what garden was that?
It was the Moore Turner Heritage Gardens. It's sort of like a sister to the Manitou Gardens. It's the lesser known sister. It's on the Lower South Hill. It's a beautiful, beautiful garden.
Ernest isn't just like Godot in a way. It's not something that has huge set demands. You could do it in a black box and say we are in a garden. I think just some cucumber sandwiches and you should be good to go for Ernest. And then, that does speak to the name Hitchhikers. And you conceived this very much as a roving theater group that would move into the venue and take the productions into the venues that suited them. So talk more about that philosophy and that approach, and maybe you have some venues already in mind for future productions that you think, I know the venue before I know the play.
Yes. Yeah. So I think there's kind of two sides to this. One is that theater can feel pretty distant for a lot of people. I know it did for me. Like, I didn't have any experience with theater, and so I never thought to go see a play. And so part of this is we take theater to places people already are. So our most recent show was in the Crest Gallery, which is an art gallery in the River Park Mall. People already walk through there pretty often, and so we wanted to take live performance to where people already are, but then also bring them to places. I'm so sorry, I lost my train of thought, but really, I mean, our goal is just to bring art to people who wouldn't otherwise get the chance to experience that.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of creates, rather selfishly, an opening for me to talk about the Crest Gallery, because that struck me as an unusual venue because it's all the way it's a little off in River Park Square. And so I was wondering, was it as public as you thought it was going to be? And how was it performing in a mall when, it seems a little antithetical to theater, although I have to give you kudos for even taking it there in the first place. So that was She Kills Monsters.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how the venue went and a little bit about that production.
The venue was fantastic. They were great people to work with, and also we had rehearsed there a couple times just to get everyone familiar, and every time people would walk by, it was sort of near the bathrooms and behind the food court.
And so you are getting them where they least expect it.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But where they need to go. And so they'd walk by and they'd be like, what is this? And they'd see us holding paper mache dragons, and we'd give them our thing and they'd say, oh, that's really neat, and when is this? And so that's sort of guerrilla marketing at its finest, I guess, is people were just walking by. But also, thankfully, we performed late enough. I mean, the mall closes, they turned off the music, and it ended up being pretty private, which was nice. It was near the bathrooms, but it was pretty private. And we had more people turn out for that show than any other show we've done. So
well, also, I mean, She Kills Monsters, the version we did is based around high schoolers, and where do high schoolers go other than the mall to just kill time? And also the Crest Gallery is often students' artwork, and so it was really kind of cool to see this sketchbook kind of design set combined with the sketchbook design of the whole art gallery of people's art from like middle school and high school.
Yeah, and Jim Moore from the Blue Door Theater was in here very, very recently talking about how they'd created this yes and gallery so that it could be a performance space augmented by static visual art. And it sounds like you were doing that without actually having to go out and invest the funds in a dedicated gallery. Here you are surrounded by art and then delivering live performance. And in between all this was It's a Wonderful Life, a radio play, which has been done before. I know that I think it was at Interplayers was the first production that I had seen locally, and I know it's been staged, a couple times since. Again, what was the thinking behind this? Was it simply because it was so versatile? Did you do it at KYRS, and so you had a radio station backdrop?
No, we actually created the radio station backdrop ourselves. I think we did it as a staged reading. And we were bringing in somebody else who had never directed before, who's also on our board of directors, Zach Zwanzig. Who's just an incredible, talented person. And he wanted a shot of learning how to direct. And so we figured this is sort of a bit of a blank slate sort of play. But then also it was a way to ease him in to the world of directing by having it as a staged reading. So that was a big part of it, was the mentorship aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we performed. We didn't perform in a radio station. We performed in 2 different churches in town. I'm blanking on the names of these churches.
We did it at the West Central Abbey and then the Westminster.
Yeah.
So 2 just beautiful, like historic looking, but also very affirming churches. And so it was just really beautiful to have so many queer and diverse actors in these kind of traditional looking religious spaces and this kind of traditional type play with a bit of a different spin on it. And so I just thought it was like this really beautiful convergence of sort of traditional and progressive values that just blended so beautifully around the holidays.
And again, it was where people already were. And so many of the audience members were people that were going to the church, and the church we had said, hey, would you mind, encouraging people to come to the show? And they said, absolutely, it's the holidays. And so that was really handy too, to bring more people into theater that they might think, oh, this is really cool. I've never seen a show before. Maybe I'll come see the next one.
Yeah, and I think your model kind of highlights one of the potential deficiencies of traditional theater is that, to some extent, you're speaking to, you're preaching to the choir, you're speaking to the built-in audience that you already have. It's theater goers who are comfortable going to the theater. They say, they identify as theater goers. And so, they're comfortable going into these spaces. But especially, whether you're talking a mall or a church or whatever, or even a garden environment, you're actually kind of leveraging their built-in audiences, which might not identify as theater goers, and then kind of turning them on to this. I'm curious about what sort of feedback you've had. You had mentioned going or performing at the Crest Gallery and people saying, I wasn't expecting this, or, that's kind of cool. That's unexpected. But, have you had any feedback from, say, The Importance of Being Earnest, where somebody came up and said, this really made my day because I wasn't expecting to find it here, and it ended up being really cool?
Yeah, The Importance of Being Earnest was really neat because I edited the script, so it's in the public domain, thank goodness, and I got to make some tweaks to the script because I really wanted to stage it in a way where it all takes place in real time in one setting. And so you only have to tweak a couple things, but the whole idea was, okay, you are invited as a guest into Algernon's garden, and the actors are going to talk to you because you're guests at the party, and they might ask you to respond, and you can have the cucumber sandwiches too. And so I think a lot of people were a little worried that I have a background in improv as well. And so I was not too concerned, but I had some people on the team being like, hey, I hate going to shows and then suddenly the actor's talking to me, or it's cabaret and they're sitting on my lap and I didn't ask for that. And so, but thankfully, I think, we got a lot of people that said, this was a lot of fun, and I don't normally come to stuff like this.
Yeah. One sweet piece of feedback we got on that show in particular was, I think it was a friend of a friend of a friend brought her whole family. She brought all of her kiddos who were anywhere between, I think, 7 years old and 16 years old. And so they were really kind of dragged along because they're teenagers and they never really want to go anywhere. But I remember we heard afterwards that they just had so much fun. And also these kids who have lots of energy got to go run around the gardens in between and in our intermission and before and after the show. And actually then they ran into Joe. This kid ran into Joe later and said that she was so starstruck because he was the actor from the play. So it was just really cool to see kids get to engage in theater in kind of a way that they didn't expect. I mean, you're dealing with the hardest audience when you're dealing with teenagers.
And did I understand you correctly when you said that you hadn't had a lot of dealing with the theater prior to this? Was that not just as a performer, but also as an attendee?
Yeah, correct. I don't think I've ever been to a play. I think maybe I went to a church play as a kid. And I think that was about it. So, I mean, I couldn't have, listed any playwrights. I could probably list 1 or 2 musicals that maybe I'd overheard, probably mostly movie musicals. But really, a lot of this was just through, friends I made in college and through Joe, who taught me a lot of these people and these names.
So in a way, this is kind of, speaking to the Siennas of the world, and hopefully catching them young enough so that they say, hey, I did have these encounters with theater and it doesn't seem so alien, and it's something that, hopefully more folks can find approachable, I guess, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my hope, especially in kind of the modern age where we spend so much time on social media or, we're just kind of divided from each other. It's really a cool thing of like, you're just mingling with people all the time. Like, it's a very human thing, I think, to watch people act and in some ways like play pretend and tell stories and even sometimes interact with you in like a really bad British accent. And so I just think it's a very community oriented hobby, I think. And so I look forward to more people who maybe they don't want to work for a theater, right? I didn't think I was going to work for a theater, but who will just find some joy in getting to interact with people in a new way.
And paint me a picture of some of the production quality, because you're taking advantage of these venues for the nature of the venue themselves. How elaborate are the props? How elaborate are the costumes? Or does it have kind of a DIY feel, and that's intentional?
I think it'll be different for pretty much every show. For She Kills Monsters, that was definitely the most design-heavy show because it's sort of about Dungeons and Dragons, and so we had to build a bunch of dragons and monsters and vampires, and we built all these. Each actor had so many costumes, and that venue sort of spoke to the themes of the show, but it was not the setting for the show. So we also had to do like backdrops for it. Whereas something like The Importance of Being Earnest, or The Importance of Being Earnest in particular, we didn't have to design a set because that was our venue. So aside from the cucumber sandwiches and the handbag, it was pretty light on the design stuff, but I think it'll always feel, I mean, of course the show ends and then 5 minutes later after bows, all the cast and the crew are folding chairs and tables and they're in costume and they're lugging them over to our cars because they were rentals. Like, there's no curtain. Everybody's seeing all of the work.
Yeah, and I think that's part of maybe our charm, right? If you want to see big spectacle and production, we do bits and pieces of that, but also the Spokane Civic does a wonderful job of doing that. And so I think there's something very human and very down to earth and very grounded about getting to see, like, for example, our dragon heads up close, that our designers spent hundreds of hours working on these 5 dragon heads and did an incredible job. And you do see up close, like you see some of the imperfections. And so I think, again, it just lowers that barrier of, yes, it looks really cool, but also it's sitting right in front of you, right? It's not so far away. And so I think it makes people think like, oh, this is possible. Like, I'm really interacting with like people here.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And it's something you achieve through that fourth wall breaking in the production, because that engages the audience and invites them into the production. And it has actually proved unusually popular. I remember Troy Nickerson and Chris Jensen of Theater on the Verge were talking about Every Brilliant Thing, which has audience participation elements and really kind of calls people out and has them think on their feet. And they said this component actually went way better than they had imagined. And so you were talking about your background in improv, and even the actors were a little trepidatious about maybe,
it's a scary word.
Engaging with folks. But that really is kind of their invitation to become a part of this. And then when you see the actors breaking down the set, again, it just, it might strip away some of the allure, but it also says, this is real, this is tangible, this is accessible.
Yeah, I think spectacle is not always, I don't think it's as much of a novelty as it used to be, and what can sometimes feel like a novelty these days is like the reality of 2 people in a room and no screens. Like, that's a little morbid, but when you're watching a show and you're so close, you can see like beads of sweat on people's faces. That, as an audience member, that feels much more exciting to me. At times. I mean, also, spectacle is spectacle for a reason, and it's really impressive to see.
And there's a time and place for it. But when I go to Best of Broadway, I want spectacle.
Yes.
But
Sure,
if I'm seeing a theater production in the park, spectacle isn't my number one priority.
Yeah.
And I also think with the advent, the boom of AI, authenticity is going to become more important than anything else, because AI is very capable of generating a lot of spectacle, a lot of empty spectacle, but it might be, and I hope this is true, that audiences end up gravitating and searching for authenticity, the human, the flesh and blood,
I think so.
more so than spectacle.
Yeah, I think so. Part of what's great about being so close to the audience and sitting at tables with audience members is that they can see the paint strokes on your cardboard set, even if it is they can see that it was made and not purchased, and they can imagine, oh, maybe it was that person in the black t-shirt in the corner looking through the script with their reading light on it. Maybe they did that.
Yeah.
I think there's something really special about that.
So you've wrapped up season 1, and just to be clear, season 1 was always kind of predefined as these 4 shows. I know you said you'd initially contemplated 6, but it was Waiting for Godot, Importance of Being Earnest, It's a Wonderful Life, the radio play, and then She Kills Monsters. And that was kind of what you had envisioned as the first season.
Yeah.
So now you're embarking on your second season with 5 lesbians eating a quiche, which I think was designed in name alone to get people to say, to sit up and take notice. Talk to me about why you chose this play, and maybe. We don't want to give away any spoilers, obviously, but talk about the premise of this play and maybe where it gets its title.
Yeah, when we did the same thing, told everyone go read a bunch of plays. We locked ourselves in a room. We heard a lot more pitches this year, which was good, and sort of a lot of the criteria that we use is, okay, is it a recognizable title? Is it something people that aren't in the theater scene will know? And this isn't one of them, although once you hear the title, you understand what the show is about. Feasibility about the scale of it, the why here, why now kind of question. And this show is, of course, it's about 5 lesbians eating a quiche. It's, maybe you can talk more about.
Yeah, so the general premise, yes, it's pretty clear, but essentially it's based in the 1950s around a group of, I think it's the Susan B. Anthony's Widows Club or community.
Yeah, widow kind of in quotes.
Widow in quotes, right?
Single women.
It's a group of single women. They meet for a quiche breakfast. It's based in sort of this Cold War era. And so there's this overlap of essentially they get stuck in there, and then we talk about maybe they're not actually widows, maybe they're lesbians. And it's just a hilarious play based in kind of this 1950s Cold War era. And so it just felt very fitting time and place for us. It's this group of women, and they suddenly become essentially in charge of their nation in some ways, right? They're all in this community together. And so it shows what happens when women are in places of leadership, and it's sort of this really funny take of what they imagine the future will look like for them based in the 1950s. Yeah. And so it just felt very relevant to kind of our own political climate right now, and we really wanted to put voices of women, and often queer women, kind of at the front and center of this.
Yeah, and the title, I don't know if it's necessarily indicative of the repression that they feel at the beginning, because the title kind of gives the game away to some extent. But there is a certain repressed nature, and the fact that these aren't necessarily widows in the conventional sense is something that comes out once they escape those repressive confines.
We talked a lot about, of course, the modern political event that we're in the middle of, but also about COVID and how when you're stuck somewhere for a really long time, you start to face truths about yourself and each other. And there's something really special about what the story has to say about how a supportive, especially queer women, how this supportive community can really save lives being in the eye of sort of a political tornado going on outside.
And so this is a cast of 5. Do you want to talk about some of the performers that are involved in this? Are they familiar faces to folks who have seen previous Hitchhikers Theater productions?
Not for Hitchhikers Theater. All of the actors in this show are brand new to Hitchhikers. I'm pausing to make sure that's correct. Yes, that's
some
correct.
of them have seen our shows.
Some of them have been audience members before. Some of them will look familiar to those who are in other theater communities. A few of, I believe it's Abby Constable, has been working with Inland Classical Theater.
And she was just in the Spokane Playwrights Festival.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And she's absolutely hilarious and brilliant in this. More we get to know her, she's just such a wonderful person. Yeah. Similar, Abby Burlingame,
yes.
I believe.
Also in Inland Classical Theater.
Also an incredible person who got the chance to meet through this process. Sierra Polly is an actress that we knew from Whitworth, and so she's still a student and continuing and getting her degree, I believe, in theater. And so we're sort of her step outside of the university experience. And then we have a couple people who either one of them hasn't acted before ever. This is the first time, and they're kind of new to the area and just wanted to get the chance to make friends and try something new. And then another hasn't acted in a couple of decades. Yeah. And so she wanted the chance to get back into it. And so they're kind of our new people in the theater community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that mix. Because that really is what community theater is supposed to be about. It's this mix of the experienced, maybe the rusty, and then the neophyte, and then bringing them all together so that they can learn from one another. Because it's even good for the veterans to learn from the new folks, but also to do theater kind of for the love of it. And you don't have the best of Broadway pressures or the same best of Broadway pressures with this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. And I know Joe pointed something out after our auditions. I am blanking on her last name, but Emma is one of our actresses, and she's never done theater before. And Joe pointed out, in the audition, maybe it's a little bit taboo. I wouldn't know this, but to look the director right in the eye when you're, reading a piece or reading some of your lines.
Really? I had no idea.
I didn't know about this, but he said, maybe some people would try to stay away from that. Maybe it would feel a little bit taboo, but of course she wouldn't think that way. She's never done this before. And so she just felt so human to us. Like
that's fantastic.
She was so comfortable, like getting up and close. And we thought, this is such a great extension if we're doing the show where you have to interact with people. It makes a lot of sense to have someone who's never had like a fourth wall they were trying not to break. And so it really lended herself, I think, to some level of comfort that maybe she wouldn't have in kind of a classical stage production.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to have people that are sort of newer to theater, both like on stage, but also on the crew side of things, because generally, at least is what I've been taught, is that if you're like giving a monologue in an audition, you like pick a spot, maybe over the shoulder or something, because it can be a little intimidating if I'm looking at you in the eyes and I'm crying about how you're breaking up with me or something. Your impulses can't want to look away. Like there's a lot of pressure, but Sienna doesn't know that, and the actor didn't know, and so I don't know, to bring theater to people to make it more accessible, I think you need people that are a little bit outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it's Sydney Anderson that's directing?
Yeah.
And was this a request on Sydney's part to direct this, or was this something that you said, hey, Sydney, I think you would be a good candidate?
It was a little bit of both. So after every show, we give cast and crew feedback forms to tell us, like, what can we do better? What are we doing well to make sure that they're having positive experiences? And we know that this is our first year and we're going to keep growing. And we asked people, is there anything else you want to do with us? And Sydney had said that she was interested in starting to learn how to direct. And then on top of that, in that meeting where we're planning all of our shows out, we knew that it didn't seem quite right to have a man direct this show about 5 lesbians eating a quiche. And so we thought through who are the women in our lives and that we worked with who would be interested in this opportunity, but who would also have a unique and a meaningful voice to add to this. And she just was the perfect candidate for it, and was so excited when we reached out, and it was a pretty immediate yes.
Yeah, we do have a very long and quickly growing spreadsheet of people that have said, I saw a show or I was in a show and I want to direct for you in the future. I would love to learn how to stage manage or design or whatever, which is really cool. So she came from that list.
And this is taking place at the Guardian, which is a venue almost like the listening room at the Hamilton studio that wasn't on a lot of folks' radar just a little while ago, and then all of a sudden they're doing a lot more events there. And so, talk to me about how you came to pair up with the Guardian. Was it you who approached them and said, "Hey, we think this will be a good fit"?
Yeah, I believe our director, Sydney, sort of floated it and said, here's one of the places I'm looking at out of a list of several places. And we kind of put feelers out to see who would be interested in working with. And we do lots of tours and discussions to see if we're matching the show well. And Ashley, who owns The Guardian, was just such an incredible person and had such an incredible dream for this space. And I think it just felt right kind of immediately. So we reached out to them. And it was just such a huge, beautiful space, and it made so much sense that this, again, this repressed group that is in a community center would take place in a former church, but is now this kind of very, I guess, diverse and queer and kind of different space, right? They do a lot of burlesque shows and aerial classes. And so it just felt like such a natural fit that we were all really excited for.
Yeah, as well as like markets as well. So they're really, just kind of opening it up to almost everything, which is really nice to see, just to bring more activity to the space.
Yeah, I know they started as an aerial troupe with all kinds of different performances, and she told me they were looking for their own home and then just found a space that was way too big and decided to make this performance venue. And so we're really excited just to keep seeing them expand. I think we're the first of hopefully many people. And hopefully we'll get to just keep working with them in the future because they're just such wonderful, talented people over there.
And this is a case where I don't want to give the game away, but I feel like we have to discuss it since we were already talking about how audience interaction has been a component of previous productions. Audience interaction, at least as the script calls for, is kind of a component of this as well.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's a meeting of all of the widows in this town. And so the 5 lesbians on stage are the officers of this widows group, but everyone else in the audience, they're, again, sort of similar to Ernest, they're speaking directly to the other members of this group. And so when you walk into that room, you're a lesbian, whether you know it or not.
That's right. So everybody gets to role play. So.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, no one's going to be called to... I don't even think anyone is called to speak. The script is pretty generous and considerate to a lot of audience goers that do just want to be viewers, and if they're spoken to, that's fine. But sometimes it can be pulling teeth to get audience members to respond to you, especially if they're not theater people.
Yeah. Sometimes we're scoping before shows because we never want to add pressure to someone who clearly does not want to be interacted with, who's maybe a little bit shy. Maybe like me, I just want to sit and watch a show. I don't want to be talking in front of people. So we're definitely always keeping an eye out of like who seems like they want to talk, who's our chatty people in the audience. And then we kind of get to whisper that to the actors so that people who are a little bit more shy don't feel that pressure to engage in the same way other people would really love.
Yeah.
We had an actor in Ernest tell us before the show, say, hey, my husband and daughter are going to come tonight. Don't talk to them. Please don't ask them to respond. Don't ask them a question and ask them to respond to you. They will not do it. We were like, great, which one? What color shirt?
So what is on the horizon now? And I'm interested both in terms of venue. You mentioned that you had some venues in mind and we're looking for the right show. So where is season 2 going to take us?
We definitely have kind of our secret plan, but theater rights are expensive. And so we kind of pay for each show like one show at a time. And so we have a plan sort of set out, but then we're also, cautiously optimistic. We want to keep this as sustainable as possible. And so we've really hit kind of a comfort stride at 4 a year. But I mean, we always look at like our most classic Spokane venues. And I think we can start to reference, like we've looked at like Magic Lantern and some of the like theaters here and see if we can put a show there. We've also looked at like the Beaux-Arts Mansion or some of those like big historical houses as well to do these immersive shows.
There's a lot of beautiful outdoor spaces, sort of outdoor spaces that could become theatrical. I know the MAC has a really beautiful outdoor amphitheater. But we can't give you the scoop.
Well, even taking it to some parks, you know, I know that Shakespeare in the parks has always been kind of an expectation of summer, and they've experienced some success in that regard. And so the idea of just taking it to smaller parks and bringing some attention there and capturing some of that incidental traffic might also be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other part that maybe our audience doesn't see as much is that we also do rehearsals and we do our crew meeting in lots of different spaces in Spokane as well. So whether it's parks or universities or recently a friend's backyard. And so there's kind of the second half of our cast and crew gets the chance to experience a lot of Spokane that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise, just because we like to expand and try to find new places where we can meet. I mean, lots of breweries and coffee shops and parks have probably overheard a lot of details of our meetings.
Yeah, I think that's one way where maybe someone that's working with us for their very first show has sort of a leg up on maybe a more veteran performer. Is we, just because of the nature of our theater, we're calling actors to do things that they are unfamiliar with and maybe at the beginning a little uncomfortable with. And so whether it's performing in the round in the mall or something like that, that can be a little bit more disarming for more veteran performers, but that makes sure that everyone gets challenged and everyone gets pushed. So,
and before we kind of got going, you had intimated that there was a second show that you were kind of almost ready to announce. Is that something you would feel comfortable talking about now?
We can't announce it yet, but you can be sure that in true Hitchhikers fashion, it will be immersive. It's going to be taking place in the fall, so all of those fall vibes are going to be there. And we are just starting pre-production, and so we are just getting that excitement rolling kind of in our crew. And stay tuned. It'll be very soon before we get the chance to announce it.
And can I ask why the hush-hush? Is it because you're still sorting out some rights issues?
It's the rights issues,
I see.
yeah.
Okay.
The rights application can sometimes be very long. Sometimes it takes a lot of time, and we want to make sure, we do a lot of research to make sure we're not stepping on other people's toes as much as possible. And with us, we need to book a venue first. So we have to reach out to a venue, and then we can apply for the rights, because when you apply for rights, you have to put a venue down. And so it's a very long process for us in a way that kind of a traditional theater wouldn't have to consider.
I was going to say that's a very unique challenge for you. And can make securing those rights difficult. I didn't realize that you needed to have kind of an anchor venue before you can do that.
Because some places will charge based on the amount of seating that you're able to provide or the number of anticipated ticket sales, and they want to have a kind of a venue locked down so they know specifically where you're performing.
And you had mentioned that you pay your actors a stipend, and professional theater has been a difficult endeavor to sustain here in Spokane. And so I know stipend isn't the same as professional, but any remuneration at all is more than just simple community theater and more than volunteer theater.
And I'll clarify, we pay our crew small stipends, and again, it's a small amount. It's a kind gesture, but you're right. It's not industry standard by any means.
Right.
The cast is paid by donations from the audience.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So we have a QR code, and then we ask audience members if they feel inclined to donate. It's very similar to what Stage Left does. And then the donations are divided evenly among all of the castmates.
I see. Yeah, because I was going to ask, about ticket prices and that sort of thing, because it seems like public venues don't necessarily lend themselves to, having that funnel for admissions. And so it's largely donations based, and those donations are then going to the actors. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. We believe that everyone who works on our team should be paid something. And so there's been, some shows where I think we, as the owners and creators, help supplement the actors' tips as well, because we want to make sure they're walking away with something. So if we have like a really slow show where, we didn't market as well and maybe we get $7 of tips, we're not going to send them away with $1. We want them to get a little bit more and some motivation to recognize that like their art is really worth something. And so we hope that it becomes more of a standard across, but it's absolutely standard for us.
Yeah.
So we've talked about shows, and it's easy to fixate on the day-to-day of getting the shows up and running and staged and then planning the next show. Is there any sort of big vision that you've got in mind for Hitchhikers Theater, or is that going to come a little later once you feel like you've really got your feet?
Yeah, there are plenty of goals we have.
We're dreamers.
We were both born with the how hard could it be gene. And I think that really marks most of our decisions. So we do have a 5-year strategic plan that that I came up with, and then I kind of presented to our board members and all the people who help support us, just so that we can make sure we're staying on track. And then every year we have on the calendar that we meet as a whole board. So all of the active kind of crew members, along with a few other people who've worked with us in the past, are kind of our established board as we got established as a nonprofit this year. And so we have a 5-year strategic plan as far as we want to be more consistent and being able to announce a whole season at once and have that kind of financial privilege to do that and to be able to reach out to these venues early on. Our goal is to keep expanding our skills and the spectacle of it as we're able to achieve more and more. And also as we accumulate resources like getting lights and mics and storage spaces, and maybe a bigger car so we can transport things. All these things that just sort of accumulate over time. We have kind of 5-year markers we're looking to aim, and then sort of markers we try to achieve every year and then break down to every quarter.
Oh, that's fantastic. And are there any groups in town that you're kind of looking to as maybe a model or somewhere where you'd like to be, or you feel to some extent like you're forging your own path?
I think it's a mix of both. I am grateful for getting sort of a window into seeing what Stage Left does, and the success that they've found, especially just in the last 5 years since COVID, is incredible. They're doing a show right now. Oh, it's in a different country. They're
in Monaco.
Yes, they're in Monaco.
I think they've gotten back by now.
Okay,
Either that or they're at the tail end of that.
Yeah. But
they were taking Passover there, which had done so well.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And so while learning some organizational skills from them has been great, I do think as Hitchhikers Theater, I think we're going to keep being that the goal is not to get a theater auditorium and then we won't have to travel around so much. That's what we like doing. We would like to get a space for consistent rehearsals, storage, and maybe like a classroom. Maybe that's the big dream, but
also, I mean, Bright Comet was here before us doing sort of a similar thing in that they were using other spaces to help themselves put on art. And so in some ways we're following in their footsteps, along with Blue Door and the number of classes they teach. But also TAC and how many new people they bring on for every single project.
The networking that places like Spokane Pride does is really impressive too.
So I think we draw inspiration from a lot of different people and communities, whether it's theater and arts related, or sometimes just other nonprofits here in Spokane. I mean, we're definitely not, I think there's unique parts of Hitchhikers, but we're not so entitled to think that everything we do is just brand new.
No.
Well, when you brought up Bright Comet, they were. I saw them as a kindred spirit in this, and their mission isn't necessarily to go to new venues. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily a part of their mission statement, but although they have done that and they've taken it to some really interesting places.
Yeah, they have.
But also providing new opportunities for inexperienced actors. And when Dominique of Bright Comet was in here, we talked about how that's going and how encouraging it was that so many of the established actors are now bringing their talents to Bright Comet, but they're still being balanced by a lot of newcomers and encouraging and generating that new talent. So rather than seeing I don't think you can have too many people crowding this space. The more opportunities, the better.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And I think similar to them, right, we have this combination of very experienced, highly educated people, right? Aaron Bratt is our music director. He composed an entirely original score for She Kills Monsters. It was a huge, huge project for him. And he got to bring in and show people the process a little bit of this is what it looks like to compose. And we learned a lot about the composing process. Yeah. And so it's really cool to have experts teaching excited people about new things.
Okay. Joe, I saw you reaching for the drink. I don't know if you want to have a drink now and brace yourself for where we're about to go.
Dreaded lightning round.
It's a shame that there's nothing stiffer in there, I guess.
All right.
Yeah, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've covered where you've been, where you're heading, all the places you'll be hitchhiking to. And now we enter the lightning round, which is a series of unrelated questions, although I do have a little tie-in for you.
Sure.
So first one is usually an either or. This is a would you rather. All right, and so this goes to both of you. Sienna, I'll start with you since Joe has the improv training.
Sure, yeah.
He's probably eager to put it to good use. Would you rather always speak in rhyme or always sing?
I think I would go with always singing, because I think if I had to always speak in rhyme, I don't think I would talk much. I think I'd be busy thinking about it too much.
And plus you have all the experience singing in the shower,
singing in the shower,
in the
car, right? The Mamma Mia soundtrack is very familiar to me.
Is that one of your favorites? The Mamma Mia
yes.
soundtrack? Yeah.
Oh, yes. A fun fact about me is that Meryl Streep was my top Spotify artist last year.
No
so
kidding.
I listened to a lot of Mamma Mia. So yeah.
Oh, what are some close seconds on that?
On
the singing.
On other things I sing.
Yeah.
I love Phineas, and I recently have gotten into Billie Eilish. Claro is up there, but unfortunately I think Mamma Mia is the only musical theater I really dip my toe into. Maybe Dear Evan Hansen, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do have some musical, some musical forays.
Not many, but there's a couple in there that I know.
We'll get you on stage someday.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
And the thing is, I sing in the shower, I sing in the car, but I have an absolutely terrible voice. Do you have a good set of pipes?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she does.
No, I wouldn't say so. I don't think I would ever audition for a show.
Okay.
And maybe I'm, good enough, but I'm surrounded by very talented people all the time. So my comparison level is very high.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a reason I only sing in private. So.
Sure.
Joe, what about you? The choice here: always speak in rhyme or always sing.
I would take singing as well. Singing is almost always pleasant, and I think rhyming can be a little disarming. And I'm a tall guy with a deep voice, and it can be a little
You sound like a
bridge troll. Yeah. It can give Grand Wizard vibes, and singing never does that. So
okay. Yeah. See, when I frame this question, the thing that appealed to me about always speaking in rhyme is that it kind of lends itself to a career as a hip hop artist, and so it's
sure.
I could do that, and then always
That's
kind
not
of
bad.
move into hip hop and just make that a moneymaker.
Is that your personal answer? Has anybody turned it around on you yet?
Actually, no, they haven't.
And thank you,
but
by the way.
But now that you mention it, I think I would choose the rhyming portion just because it kind of lends itself to that.
Sure.
Plus, you would want to
And you can't rhime bad, but you can sing bad. Not you,
Sure.
I mean
one.
One can sing poorly, but
Although
Sure.
I've heard some bad rhymes. I mean, pop songs are full of bad rhymes.
Sure.
Just some stretches.
Yeah.
Okay, so second question. Joe, you're going to start off with this one. Have you ever hitchhiked?
no, I think that's a dead. No, I don't think. I don't think so. No, I mean I know I haven't. I'm not sure people are doing that anymore.
It's a lost art.
Yeah, maybe.
Sienna,
No,
what about
I
you?
don't think so. I think I think there's a built-in fear, as a woman, I think that maybe Joe can maybe get away with it, but
As a tall guy with a deep
right,
voice.
as
Yeah.
a tall guy, deep voice, he kind of has a built-in intimidation and safety. I don't think I would ever find myself in that situation.
So fearing that you would say no, because it is kind of a dying art. Although
Sure.
I read and ended up reviewing a book about hitchhiking,
Oh, yeah.
where a proponent of hitchhiking was saying we need to get back to this because it was so wonderful.
Sure.
I mean, you talk about improv skills. Imagine striking up a conversation with just a series of strangers on a journey. Although,
You know, we share a car right now, so
So in a way-
sometimes it'd really come in handy.
so the follow-on question from that is the most interesting place that you've visited.
It's all mushy gushy, but our honeymoon was in Thailand. And we got to go to an elephant sanctuary, the kind of place where you can bathe with the elephants and make them a little salad and feed it to them. That was pretty cool.
Yes, yeah, that's a good one. I've done a lot of backpacking in Washington State, and so I've backpacked the Olympic Peninsula a couple of times. And
A couple of times. Wow, okay.
Yeah. And then I've done some through hikes of the Olympic National Park as well. And so when you're like really in the middle of nowhere, I think that's some of the most interesting places I've ever been, where you're just surrounded by like bears and mountain goats, and you just have to live with that.
Yeah, couldn't be me.
So I kind of cheated and packed 2 questions into that. So this is the third. If you imagine you've got to wear a T-shirt regularly, maybe not exclusively, but regularly, and one of these T-shirts that has a saying on it. So you have to design a T-shirt that really speaks and says something about your life. What is the T-shirt saying going to be? Joe, since you went first last time,
Thank you.
Sienna, you don't get the reprieve on this one.
Yeah.
You've got to come up with a T-shirt slogan or a T-shirt design that really says something about your life.
You know, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think my phrase would be, how hard could it be? I think I've lived a lot of my life that way. And so I find myself thinking or saying that out loud probably every single day. And so I think I could get that tattooed on my body more than a T-shirt. I live by that.
Yeah, so if you do end up having to get a custom T-shirt done, how hard could it be? Would be, front and center on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, she said that you share this. How hard could it be? Would you end up wearing matching T-shirts?
No, for fear of being challenged. Sienna has that a little stronger than I do. I've got, how hard could it be? Well, sometimes it can be a little hard. No, my shirt would... I'm trying to think of something clever. My last name is Henson, and I'm a really big fan of the Muppets, though I don't know if there's any relation to Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets. But maybe I could lie. Maybe it would just say, like, grandnephew of the Muppets.
I say with like,
Joe
with like a
Henson.
Kermit logo or
Yeah.
a Fozzie
Yeah.
Fozzie the Bear.
I take
image
a
or
lot of
something
inspiration from Kermit the Frog.
Okay, can you do any Muppet voices?
Oh,
You set yourself up for that one. Maybe not well, but I'm sure he
yeah,
can
not
try.
well, but I do it all the time. Here's a little Kermit the Frog. But I've got a pretty deep voice for it, so.
Well, see, the hidden talents come out during the lightning round. So
That's I guess they do.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So it's a T-shirt proclaiming some relation to the Henson with a Kermit the Frog. On
Yeah,
it,
maybe Jim Henson's my dad. Jim Henson's not my dad. My dad is Tim Henson.
And then finally, do you or have you ever had a nickname?
Sometimes Jobo. Sometimes
Jobo.
people have called me Jobo.
Okay. At what point in your life did that evolve?
I didn't, but I tried to apply for clown college when I was a senior in high school. And it's actually, there's a fee for the application, and I didn't want to pay the fee, but I filled out the application.
Wait.
This will circle back, I promise.
Clown college is a thing.
Yes.
I thought it was only something in Simpsons episodes.
No, it's real. There is a pretty heavy fee to even apply, I think, to rule out the jokers, which is those are the people that you want. The application is in Comic Sans, by the way, which is really funny. But yeah, when you fill out the application, they ask, what kind of clown are you? And there's different genres of clowns, and they say, what's your clown name? And I came up with Jobo. And then I had a buddy email them under the guise of being my school principal, asking them permission to waive the application fee for me. And They didn't do it. They didn't get back to us. So I never actually applied myself to clown college, but that's how Jobo started. Jobo the clown.
No kidding. I mean, and that's kind of an alternate path for you. I mean, when we imagine the Joe that could have been,
Sure.
you know, there's a Hitchhiker's Theater Joe in this universe, and in some parallel universe,
That's right.
that Joe did get into clown college. He succeeded.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And-
if I put all that energy into juggling swords or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, Jobo is a star in that universe.
Jobo, he's at the top clown. He's a household clown.
Again, these are things that wouldn't come out during the ordinary interview.
You're right.
And so, yeah.
These are hard-hitting questions.
Yeah.
Very revelatory
I
as
know.
well. Sienna?
The closest thing I've had to a nickname is when I was a teenager. I was learning how to be a raft guide on the Deschutes River in Oregon, and I got this really goofy looking bucket hat, and one of the other guides thought I looked like a Midwest mom, and she started calling me Pam because that felt like a very Midwest mom name, and so that became my river name was Pam, and it didn't keep alive past the river. I think that name and that version of me just lives on the river, and maybe one day I'll go back and find her.
And does that group of people, or was there a group of people involved in that?
Yeah, I actually, a local nonprofit here called Peak 7 Adventures, I was associated with like as a teenager. And so that's where I learned how to backpack and rock climb and whitewater raft and all of that good stuff when I was, that was a decade ago now. But they're still going, and they're a really wonderful organization here. So that's how I learned. Yeah.
But will that group then refer to you as Pam, or?
We're all so split up that I'm sure they would remember, but I don't know if it would like spontaneously come out. Again, maybe if we like got on the river all together, it would just find itself. Or I still have the hat, so maybe if I put the hat on, they'd recognize me.
Maybe Pam would find you.
Maybe she'll find me.
Well, cool. Sienna and Joe, and I'm tempted to say here, well, Pam and Jobo. Thank you so much for coming in today and talking about all this stuff that's related to Hitchhiker's Theater. It's been a blast having you, and I'm really glad that you came in.
Thank you
for
very
having
much,
us.
EJ. Thanks a lot.